Now, the first kit that we're going to build is this Tiger I. A very famous tank, German heavy tank, World War II. This is a Tamiya kit, 1:35 scale. And then the other kit is a Sturmgeschütz or Stug. This is a Stug 4, and it's a self-propelled gun, another Tamiya kit. Really, really good quality. If we're going to build models, it's important that we have a suitable work surface. And on that work surface, I always have lots of paper towel. And the paper towel is really good because it's absorbent. And I always like to have some on the surface that you'll see in a minute. But then I also have a square so that when the brushes are cleaned off, you can wipe them on the paper towel and get them clean. Speaking of cleaning, got to have some water for your brushes because the paint that I use is just an acrylic paint, so you can just have a little bit of fun splashing around in the water there and cleaning the brushes off. And then once they're clean, take your paper towel and just start wiping them off. And I've got lots of brushes. We've got wide brushes. We've got narrow brushes. And then we've got some in-between brushes as well. Don't have to be expensive because you're only working with water-based paint. For the paints, it's important to shake them up. I use Tamiya water-based paints, mostly flat. A lot of the colors I'm going to be using will include XF1, which is a nice flat black. I'm also going to be using some XF26. It's XF26. It's a nice deep green. I'm also going to use a lot of dark yellow, XF60, dark yellow. A lot of the German tanks came off the assembly line with this as a base color, and then they would add greens and browns and other colors. So this is a red brown. This is XF64, and that's a nice flat reddish brown, which will go well with the camouflage as well. And then there's other colors that you can work with. I have some gunmetal. This is X10. This is gunmetal that you can use for machine guns in the tanks, other metal parts. This is German gray. You can buy colors that are more accurate to the color standards that the Wehrmacht used for tanks, but I'm not doing this for museums. I'm doing this for my own personal collection. So this is a nice German gray because some tanks, especially certain models of Tiger, especially if they were on the Eastern Front, would be painted in the assembly line with, they'd come off the assembly line with just a gray, and then they could add other types of camouflage. Other tools that we're going to need include some model cement. This is just Testors. Testors paints are not really that great, but their cement is pretty good. A lot cheaper than the Tamiya cement. And it is a cement. It actually melds the pieces together. You're also going to want to get yourself, and be careful with this, a nice X-Acto blade. And you can use the X-Acto blade for cutting off parts and for scraping bits and pieces when you cut it off the sprues and you want to remove some of that excess. And speaking of removing excess, you want to have some nice emery boards, because with the emery boards, you can do a lot of sanding, and it can be, aggressive sanding or light sanding. Also, in my kit, I have a trusty pair of little folding scissors. I got these in the late 80s. Little pair of folding scissors, but they're really, really handy for cutting the pieces off of the sprues. So we're going to look down at the the work surface, and let's talk through how we're going to set everything up. So as we said a moment ago, it's important to put some paper towel down. I'm on a workbench in my shop, so it doesn't really matter. But if you're working on a kitchen table, as you're cutting parts, you might want to put some padding or something underneath to protect your table. And this also absorbs any excess glue or paint or mess. I've got a nice little desk lamp to illuminate the suitable work surface. And the first thing I like to do, as I said, is get all my brushes together, have them all ready, have them all set up, have all my different paints, have the paints all set to go, have them all laid out and know which ones we're going to use. And then I always like to start off by a little bit of an unboxing. So we'll start with the Sturmgeschütz. We'll take a look and see what we have in the kit. So we'll take the kit. I'm actually going to move back a bit. So we take the lid off, and all of the parts will be wrapped in plastic to protect them. And they come on these frames, which we call sprues, and you will use your knife to cut the parts off when you're ready, and then you're going to sand them with your emery board, and then use your glue to glue them together. A little bit of a tip that I'll give you is with some of these smaller parts, like the wheels that you see here, which is common on tanks, lots of little idler wheels and parts of the tracks. You want to paint those on the sprue before you cut them off because it's a little easier. You can use tweezers, and I've got some tweezers here somewhere to hold on to parts, but some things you want to paint on the sprues. You'll also notice that we've got the hull of the tank. Sorry, got to make sure you guys can see what I'm talking about. And some people will wash the parts because they want to get any residue or oil off of them that might have come from the factory when they were releasing it from the molds. I used to do that, but the soap residue, if you didn't rinse it off sufficiently, sometimes was more annoying than any grease or oil. It is important to wash your hands if you've had a sandwich or lunch or anything that's put grease on your hands. You don't want to be touching any of the parts, especially the painted surfaces. It'll make it very hard for the paint to stick, and you won't get a good finish. Now, obviously, finish is a little less concerning on a tank. One of the reasons I love building tanks and airplanes is that they're a little more forgiving. You're not looking at a high quality finish like you would see on a car. We can see we've got the other parts of the hull. And again, might not be able to see it in the camera, but we've got a little character that we're going to have to paint, a little figure that will go in the tank. You've got some vinyl tracks. Usually model cement, normal model cement will work for this. You may have to use some super glue. Not an expert on the glues to use for this. I just know that you don't want something that's going to melt it too much. You can use a little bit of heat. You can use a blade like this one, and you can apply a little bit of heat to the tip from a lighter, and then you can melt it together. In other cases, I've seen it where you can just glue it, or a combination of both. You've also got all your instructions, and the instructions are always very handy and nice to have. They usually include little bits of history on there. This one's unusual because these are from Japan, and the history looks like it's written in Japanese. So, oh, here we go. Here's one that I can read. So, learn a lot about things when you build models. So this tells you a lot about the history of the tank, and gives you some ideas of its background and how it's built. And then you follow the instructions step by step, piece by piece, building the model slowly. I will admit that you're not going to get the best camouflage finish doing it by hand. It's better to do it with an airbrush, but this is not meant to be rushed. This could take me days, weeks, even months. It's not about necessarily getting it finished. It's about the experience and how relaxing it is and soothing to sit and paint and focus on putting everything together. So that's the Strömsgodshus kit. Let's take a quick look at the Tiger kit. I'm going to move this over here, and we're going to take a look now at the Tiger kit. Much bigger kit, much bigger box. Again, we can see the hull, much bigger model, similar scale, so they should be within scale of each other in terms of what they would be like in real life. Again, more plastic parts. Again, lots and lots of wheels. If you're going to build a tank, especially a Panzer, you got to get used to doing a lot of wheels. And this kit, it looks like, is going to be extra challenging because the tracks, oh my goodness, are individual pieces. So we're going to have to put it together. I've done tracks in segments, but never individual segments. So let's, there's the turret. Let's take a look at the instructions and see if indeed we are going to be, and again, lovely bit of history there that you can read about the tank, information on how to paint it, and general steps. But I just want to flip through and see. Oh my goodness, yes. You use 100 links for one track. Oh my goodness, that's going to be interesting. Lots and lots of gluing, lots and lots of sanding, but it will create a very realistic looking finish. So that will end our introductory video today. Hope you've enjoyed this experience. On the next one, we will actually start building the model together.